not just with and scalability that aligns with artificial intelligence, but with emotional intelligence. So this is the story of Mega Search. Here we are to write the next chapter. Now, going to the next slide. Mega Search began as a niche platform, a humble software product. Vardhman, if you can go to the next slide. Or it's taking time to load, I guess. Just give us a minute.
Did it work?
I don't think so. It's moving to the next slide. Is it moving for the rest of you?
Okay. Let me reshare. Give me a minute. Sorry.
Sure.
I think it will be best if you download from Canva and then share, because otherwise we won't be able to see it move.
I'll just try this thing. If it doesn't, we can check. So, what about now? I'll remove these white boxes. Sorry.
Yeah, can you try changing the slides so that we can check?
Yeah.
Let me try once, Vardhman, if
Does it work?
works.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it on the Canva board. It's working, but not as full screen. But that's okay if that's a technical issue.
Is it okay, the screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah, can you switch slides?
Yep.
Yeah, it's working.
It's working now.
Okay.
This is better, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Sorry.
And let's go ahead with this. Well, Mega Search began as a niche platform, a humble software company with a focused purpose. But like all great technologies, it found its moment during the chaos of COVID-19. It expanded rapidly, it scaled across industries, but growth brings pressure. Maria, a protagonist and this director of technology and engineering, embodies both the excitement and the fear of this evolution. She's just not worried about tech stacks or deadlines. She's concerned about losing connection with her team, losing mentorship, losing the very soul of this organization. As Maria team aims to grow from 125 to 1,000 engineers in 5 years, she faces brutal realities, generational gaps in learning and expectation, the diminishing reach of personal leadership, a looming threat of attrition and disengagement, and the risk of chaotic, unstructured growth. But as we know, every crisis carries the seed of reinvention. And that's exactly what we have built, a scalable, emotionally intelligent solution. So when we started approaching it, we wanted to know what are we trying to solve here. So we had to come up with a goal. So this goal was to scale Mega Search engineering team from 125 to 1,000 engineers in the next 5 years, while ensuring that the employee satisfaction and there is a positive ROI. Now, we broke down the objectives into 3 pillars. One of them being that the growth has to be scalable and structured. At the same time, we have to enhance the leadership capabilities. And going forward, how to improve the employment engagement and retention. And to go forward with these objectives so that we can see it happening on the ground, we came up with 3 strategies. One of them being adapting the Spotify agile model, integrating it with emotional intelligence using AI capabilities. And then it's not going to be easy for the team to adapt to these changes. So we have thought about how would we introduce these changes. So we have come up with a change management framework where we have used ADKAR. So starting with the first, that is adapting the Spotify agile model. Well, when we're thinking around about this, any agile model per se is the operating system of any organization that tries to grow. So we benchmarked popular agile frameworks, that is SAFe, LESS, and Spotify model. Now, from the case studies, it came out clear that there was not so much of a rhythm. There was more of a rhythm than a structure. And we've And Mario wanted to sustain that rhythm, meanwhile bringing structure. So when we were comparing safe, less, Spotify made most sense. Spotify struck a chord. It offered what Mario had been craving for, a flexibility with purpose, innovation with alignment, and autonomy with accountability. So it was fair to say that Spotify model was something that as Mega Search is growing from 125 employees to 1,000, this would sustain the culture that Maria had been trying to build. Now, the four core points of this Spotify Agile model would be around about collaboration, so that we can bridge gaps. There could be any when the company grows. There could be adaptability, so that they have flexibility in workflows and leadership. Every employee should be empowered in the way they want to work in the organization. And of course, innovation. For a high-tech company as Mega Search, it has to be cutthroat in an industry that it is trying to drive its growth. Now, there are a few key terms and definitions for anyone who would want to adapt Spotify Agile model. There would be squads, there would be tribes, there would be chapters, guilds, and agile coaches. Squads would be the modular teams. Tribe would be the overarching team that would be a culmination of many squads. Chapter and guilds would be the overlapping teams that could cross-functional across multiple squads in a single time. And streamlining this all together, there would be an agile coach. And what we are trying to do here is that we would have 6 tribes, 4 squads for each of these tribes, and there would be 0 guilds initially, because we are at 2024, a smaller team. But the approach is not going to change. We would very subtly and slowly grow the tribes, but keep a modular approach. We would not focus on too big a team, rather than small, modular, flexible, movable teams across the years that would come. That is even in 2026, 2028, such that at a time that comes, we would not need the agile coach, because the gelling within the tribes and the squads and the guilds would be sufficient enough for them to function. That's the goal that we are going ahead when we want to implement this. So pretty broad, pretty nuanced or detailed picture of how we would want to build these tribes. So these tribes, we have come up with the requirement that Mega Search has for it to stand out in the crowd. So we have divided it between product development, infrastructure, AI and data, customer support, platform services, innovation team. Within each of these tribes, we will have squads, and within each of these squads, there would be chapters and guilds. For example, we have put that forward here for chapters. Chapters would be far more technical driven than functional, so that they can be shared across squads and tribes. The same goes that we start adding tribes. One more here, we would have a developer platform coming up. And going forward, we would also add more tribes around about user experience and growth and monetization. Now, here you might see one crucial differentiator, that is guilds. That is the responsible AI guild, agile excellence guild, data privacy, and customer-centric design guild. So these would just help the team have their questions answered around something that they should share all across. The innovation part that we talked about comes from the guild part of this organizational setup. Now, we would want to measure the success model. If at all Spotify Agile model goes on to success, how would we quantify it? We would measure it by the team productivity score that would be quantified by the velocity, then the satisfaction score, and if there are any number of projects that have gotten delayed. And across all 3, we hope to see a statistically significant improvement. Now, let me be very clear. Spotify model, when it was initiated, it was just a concept. When Spotify itself floated the idea, they were not sure what they were doing with it. So they solved for the autonomy model, but they never catered to the accountability. We are here to further that story, because Mega Search cannot blindly copy this and just use it as it is. We have to suit it to its unique growth trajectory and culture. And we have put that across 3 pillars. First, bringing in a structured autonomy, where you are empowered, but with accountability. We would have a minimum viable agility template for every team to work through, so that they can adapt and restructure that template as per their requirement. But the minimum viable requirement should be the same. And then we have the teams that can justify changes based on outcomes. Then we also have the roles that needs to be clarified. Each squad would work as a mini startup. Each of these squads would have a mini CEO, that would be the product manager, who would be accountable for valuable delivery. Then there would be the engineering manager, who would be accountable for execution and quality. This was lacking in its original form. And then we have agile capability building, which would cater to the understanding that the initially team would not be aware about agile workflows, methodologies. So there we have put that in place for anyone to be aware about agile concept right from the start when the team is around about 125 members. At the end, if we at all have to quantify in terms of revenue, even if the with the expansion and implementation cost, the team would still grow in revenue. And this is, mind you, a worst case scenario that we have considered where we came up with the increasing cost in terms of salary. The revenue are not affected much. Rather, we have tried to evaluate how the productivity go, and productivity went about by that there would be a decrease in revenue per employee, which means there would be an operational expense, which would be that there won't be a lot of spending per employee for them to work at their highest possible productivity. Now, going forward, I would ask Anuj to take over and explain about strategy 2.
Thank you, Shubham. So, but structure alone isn't enough. That's where our second strategy comes in, integrating emotional intelligence with AI capabilities. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions and those of others. It's a silent multiplier of great leadership. At scale, emotional intelligence transforms organization from functionally competent to culturally exceptional. In 2006, Google launched Project Oxygen to identify what makes managers effective. The highest rated managers consistently demonstrated emotional intelligence traits, especially empathy, active listening, and emotional support. Google embedded AI training into its leadership development programs. Moving on, we are not just building a workforce, we are cultivating leaders. As Megasearch scales, emotional friction becomes invisible yet dangerous. Leadership dilution, burnout, and misalignment show up not as complaints, but as attrition and missed deadlines. We must scale emotional clarity, not just code. By using emotional intelligence, we are aiming for a 27.9% increase in project success rates as per the research on EA. Moving on. So, AI is the right fit for enabling emotional intelligence because it makes coaching scalable, consistent, and measurable. Traditional coaching models break down at scale, and AI is not a replacement for empathy, it is the bridge. With the right systems, we can democratize real time coaching, reinforce positive behaviors, and ensure every employee gets support, regardless of team size. We can supercharge organizations' success with AI using AI with four initiatives: personalized learning experiences, AI-driven systems that create tailored development plans for each team member, adapting in real time to their progress and needs. Second is enhanced mentor-mentee matching, using AI to pair mentors and mentees based on skills, goals, and even personality traits, ensuring more meaningful relationships. Third, we have simulated scenarios where AI powered simulations that allow leaders to practice real life scenarios in safe environments to make better decisions. And lastly, we have recruitment optimization. That would be streamlining hiring by identifying culture aligned candidates and pre screens for emotional intelligence and adaptability traits. Unilever started in 2024 using EI with AI for their pre screens. Moving on to the next slide. So, how are we going to measure success? There are five areas that we will be measuring. First is empathy scores. This is a composite measure generated through peer feedback and AI sentiment analysis. Second is time to hire. With AI modeling culture fit, we are not just hiring faster, we are hiring smarter. Third, employee retention rates. Ongoing emotional coaching and transparent feedback loops keep employees engaged and supported. Next, we have culture fit accuracy. This measures how well new hires align with team values and norms after 90 days. Higher alignment means fewer early exits and faster integration. And lastly, we have AI trust scores, where it is a self-reported metric where employees feel they understand why AI made a decision, trust in the system, ensures adoption and usage. So moving on, let's talk about numbers. By investing in an emotional intelligence program, we project $3 million savings in training and recruitment over the next 5 years. This is not a sunk cost, it's an investment that compounds. Lower turnover, higher engagement, and fewer people lost in fog of scale. That's operational leverage, not just HR. Next, this isn't just theory. Our research shows this approach could reduce traditional training costs by 30%, lower turnover rates by 20 to 30%, and increase overall productivity by 42%. I would like to hand over to Vardhman to discuss the third strategy.
Thank you so much, Anuj. All right. So let's connect the dots. So we have already laid out two strategic pillars. First was to adopt the Spotify model for our squads, and then integrating EI and AI to the elevated leadership. Now the big question is, how do we ensure our people truly embrace these changes? Next slide, please. So transformation just doesn't happen on paper. It's happening in the hearts and minds of the team members. And this is where our third strategy comes in. A strategy where we are building a structured way of managing this change, which is focused on humans by helping every employee to understand the need, build the desire, and then reinforce these new behaviors. And our objective is very wide and clear to enable teams to work with the new Spotify model, train the leaders with this emotional intelligence, and enabling AI tools in our everyday life from coding co-pilots to sentiment and dashboards. Next slide, please. And to effectively manage this change, Mega Search needs a flexible yet structured framework. And we evaluated multiple change frameworks, including Levin's three-stage, Cotter eight-step, and Frosky Adkar. Next slide, please. So Levin's three-stage is too linear and it freezes change where we are about to iterate. Cotter eight-step is a heavyweight top-down sequence which slows down in 2 weeks and would, especially in our case where we are hiring new people every 18 months. Third strategy, which ideal for mega search approach, provides an iterative and a people-centric checkpoint, which helps us to make the change effective. Next slide, please. So let's see how this implementation will happen. So we will use an iterative spin of AdCar. So the classic AdCar is a one-wave AdCar rollout, and it's too slow and brittle for a model of Spotify where the whole organization is running in sprints and where we are expecting to double every 18 months. And this is being implemented in three phases. Phase one is the prepare approach. Phase two is the manage change, and phase three is sustain outcomes. Now let's dive in each of them one by one. So phase one. Phase one is where we will focus on the early project is when the early project kickoff stage happens, where we focus on building awareness and desire in the team for the new change. So we will start by signaling the bold business outcome by CEO and CTO, showcasing how this is impactful to our business. Then followed by this, our direct supervisors would speak to the employees to provide the personal need and improvement they can have from this change. Now, to make this further and build the desire, we'll conduct ADCAR baseline surveys to understand the desire differences and gaps, and then followed by a one-on-one desired conversations to reduce those gaps, to understand and how to improve the desire. Now we'll use AI to our leverage, and our first solution would be to implement a behavior insight engine. So this engine would cluster employees into different motivation employees and how to communicate, how to build the desire. Second is to detect emotions, because we all are remote nowadays. We'll be using sentiment analysis over Teams or Slacks and to see what the motivation is. Next slide, please. So now the phase two works, and this is when the sprint is ongoing. Sprint is where our development, discovery, deployment happens. So at this stage, will also check how are we'll be focusing on building knowledge and ability with every sprint. And this is how we'll implement this. So at planning stage of sprint planning, we'll discuss and include the theory and practical learning tasks in our sprint backlog. Second, we'll track the progress with emoji polls to see how people are desired with the new changes which we have been asking them throughout. And finally, in the review section, we'll see how proficient were people and how the utilization happened throughout the sprint. And again, with AI, just to enhance the experience, we'll create personalized learning modules where, based on each particular user learning users' preference, we will provide a learning module for them. Somebody would like videos, somebody would like courses, somebody would like real-time applications. We'll also create real-time scenarios to have that practicality in learning. So this real-time scenarios assessments will allow leaders to go in different situations and test their abilities in different situations. Moving on to the third phase, this is sustain the change. And here is to implement at stage of releasing and deploying. So also when we can see that yeah.
Sorry for interruption, but your time is up. So yeah, you can finish in maybe 1 minute.
Okay, so this is how we'll sustain the change. We'll use review performance. So quarterly leadership reviews would be taken care. We'll recognize success and public praise, and we'll also transfer the ownership. And we'll use AI tools like KPI drift alert and bias watch leads. Now, moving to the ROI analysis. So, based on the numbers of our research, we are costing around 4.7 million over 5 years with AdCar, and layering with AI, it will cost more around 2.5 million. But the payoff is huge. We are recovering around 140 million that would otherwise leak out due to the slow adoption and attrition, and that's like 10x return. And this is how we can go to the next slide. This is how we'll implement. And these are the metrics we will be measuring. The awareness desire score, managers passing EI quiz using AI stimulations, time to productivity for new hires, and finally, AI adoption utilizations. Finally, of course, there is no strategy without risk. So implementation, misalignment, resistance, or scaling too quickly could challenge our approach, but we have a plan to mitigate these strategies. So we will pilot the Spotify model in selected tribes before fully scale adoption. We'll use OKRs to align all the squads and tribes with business goals, and we'll deploy explainable AI to enhance transparency and trust in AI-driven decisions. Finally, regular audit for biases, ensuring fairness and inclusivity in leadership and work development space. You can go to the next slide. And so this is a way that scales people, not just platforms, a way that blends AI and EI structure and soul, strategy and heart. And this is not just a roadmap. This is a manifesto for every company that dares to grow without growing apart. And thank you so much. We are Team Northwestern, and thank you us for listening, and we are open to questions.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We can start with Elif asking questions, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed you mentioning explainable AI. My question is something to do with your model selection. You mentioned two models. One is Spotify Agile. The other is the Agile ADKAR model. So could you share one alternative model you considered as opposed to the Spotify Agile, and explain why you ended up choosing Spotify over it?
Yep, I'll take that question. Firstly, there are twofold reasons. In my experience when I was working at Motorola, the firm was undergoing implementing SAFe for the longest period of time. And I'd seen the issues that had been coming up there. And at the time, we were trying to overhaul the model, introduce tweaks and turns. At the same time, I was working on a research paper that was going across all agile models that are there in the market. There are around about 10 to 12 agile models. And when I landed up on the case study that Maria, the issue that Maria was going about, it demanded flexibility. It demanded a lot of autonomy, and at the same time, trying to address the accountability. So with the experience that I had and with the research that I had done, SAFe was one thing that I was thinking around about, because eventually Mega Search would grow into a company that would introduce structure. Is that timing right now? The answer was no. So SAFe, that is why we just let that be for the time. Then we went ahead with large scale framework, and we assumed that, is it flexible enough? The answer was yes, but is it to the requirement of Search? The answer was no. Spotify offered far less flexibility in terms of what kind of an organization that they want to be when they grow from 125 to 1,000. That story or that analysis could be much done better when they grow as per a Spotify Agile scale model.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Elif. Gustavo will go next.
Thank you for the presentation. Congratulations. Very nice. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the complexity, yes, the coordination and the culture shift of the models.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Wonder if you could make some comments on the complexity, coordination, and culture shift of the models you use. It's not simple to implement, so it may be complex.
So
difficult to coordinate. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I can answer this. So you're right. There would be a lot of challenges, and that's why we also iterated with time. So the last 8 months, we have iterated this solution like 4 or 5 times. Now, by now, we had fewer models. We initially realized some issues with Spotify, and we improvised it with adding more layers to it. As we discussed today. Also for ADKAR, we had some issues with how ADKAR would not be implemented with a direct one phase, one wave. So we moved to an iterative model and also implemented AI with it. Also, the AI implementation had more attributes to it by how we can improvise our overall results. So you are right. In practical life, this would still have some challenges. But as we have an iterative approach of building the solution in all the three solutions, we can actually improvise with the real-time feedback and the responses we are getting.
And I think adding to Vardhman, we have left that space open. We do not want that we are suggesting strategies that they have to strongly adhere to. Because if you see a lot of things that we have factored in is based on surveys. So there has to be that adaptability that we are going up with when we are trying to help Mega Search, because their opinion, the 125 members that are going to start this story, will help us define how that story is going to come about. So those complexities we are pretty much open to, and open to the changes that they may come across. And that is why it was very much a necessity that ADKAR cannot be a classic one-wave approach, as Vardhman said, that we had to customize that so that we can sustain that complexity with the flexibility that we want to introduce.
Thank you.
All right, Aisha, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one quick question. The Spotify model is very popular, like you said, even like Atlassian and companies like that use it a lot. Why do you think someone like Spotify, someone like Atlassian, whose day job is doing this, never thought about the solution that you have come up with?
Well, they did think about it. They just did not solve it. So Jeremiah happened to be an agile coach at Spotify, and he was very much hired with the aspiration that they are cracking something new. But when he landed up in Spotify, he got to know that there's a lot that needs to change. And actually, he ended up in a chaotic world than a structured world. So they knew what the problem was. They just did not solve it because they ended up being a bigger organization before their story could start with a much better successful agile model. So they did not solve that problem. We addressed that issue here. And that's where we came up with autonomy with accountability. That's the part we are trying to solve here with Spotify. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have just one more question. Like you mentioned a budget of 7.4 million, if I'm correct.
Yeah, around about.
Yeah. Do you think that a company that wants to scale from say 200 to 2000 engineers would be ready to spend that kind of money over 5 years on something like this? Like, what have
Well,
you checked the practicality of it? Like, have you asked a director of HR if he would spend 7.4 million over 5 years or over 3 years on something like this?
talking about the practicality, I would want Vardhman to back it up or Anuj to take it over. But when we came up with this number, 7.5 million is something that would be costing the company when we implement it using traditional methods, as in hiring as we intend to. Uh, but if we use the AI and the Spotify model approach, the cost per employee from the first year to the end would reduce, which cumulatively would end up with a 4.5 million cost. And we broke it down in terms of the training programs, the mentorship, mentee matching cost, a lot of licensing and maintenance fee. The initial setup cost when we do it using our approach would be high, but eventually across year, even when you go about beyond 2000, the cost won't change much. So if I have to convince the HR, I would convince that this is for the long haul. Initially, it would look like a high cost, but eventually it would save you, as even Vardhman mentioned, the revenue it would eventually end up generating would justify the cost we would be initially investing. Vardhman, if you have more to add.
Yeah, this is an iterative approach, so we won't be giving out around 4.5 million in the very first stage. We will start with 1 million around of investment throughout the company, and this would grow with time. And still, it's feasible because the growth strategy, the growth structure which we saw based on the revenue sheets which were given, we are projecting a growth for the company, and we are generating a lot of revenue in the company, which would enable us to also invest in this company as we are growing exponentially.
And
And adding on to
sure, Anuj, go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
adding on to what Vardhman said, there have been companies, like I mentioned during the presentation, Google, Microsoft, Unilever, they have been putting a lot of investments. And talking about Salesforce particularly, they invested 1.5 million just to start with AI and managerial reviews within using AI. So I think that this is well in line with the strategies that we have provided.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have a question from a guest. You please go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, fantastic
You can
presentation.
introduce yourself first, please.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Daniel. I work with one of the companies in Germany. I work as a technical consultant for project managers, and I mean, I love the presentation. But I have just a very simple question. You presented a very strong case for the outcome model with AI support using the Spotify style of agile organization. But in this scenario, you are scaling to a large number of engineers, and with that, it means that there would be a lot of cross-squad technical interdependencies. Dependency is always a very big problem in the whole agile word and the agile thing. So yeah, two questions here. One, how do you plan to prevent divergence in architectural standards? So you have different tribes with their AI models getting better, siloed tribes. How do you prevent those silos? That's one, in the architectural standards, not just the ways of working. Architectural standards, that's one. Then two, how do you're scaling using your AI tool? How do you ensure that you are optimizing for both velocity and the tech depth? So it's not like one over the other, like the both of them, properly optimizing for velocity that's in the terms of their performance, and also the cost of tech debt, all their like technical stuff, everything is moving at the same time. So one is not suffering for the other. I don't know if you understand the question.
Right.
Excuse me. Can you summarize your question, please?
I think it's okay. I did get the question. If I have to summarize it on Dan's behalf, it is first about technical debt, that is technical dependencies. The second is how do we ensure cross collaboration, and how would it look on the hard metrics? And that is again technical depth and velocity, right?
Okay, now perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. The first question, if I have to answer about technical dependencies. This is what was one of the crucial concerns even we discussed about, and that's a great question, because we are trying to solve that with chapters. Now, chapters are a floating boat. It is not a floating boat to 100% maximum. That is what was Spotify in its initial mode. We would try to sustain it, that the movability is not amongst all tribes, but few tribes. So the first part becomes very crucial, that what kind of tribes are we defining? We have gone with our assumptions here. So let's say we had to take a survey, we would define tribes as what Mega Search wants. Based on those questions, we would be able to assess that what would reduce that technical debt or technical dependencies. Now, even if that there is, and we assume there will be, we would want to solve that using the chapters that we have, which is a sort of a floating boat. A chapter is a team of engineers with different skill sets that can float between 2 or 3 tribes. Let's say we would put it maximum to 2 to 3 tribes to cater to that technical depth or technical dependencies that there could be, for them not to end up in a, let's say, prolonged timelines and consequences of affecting the velocity as such. So stemming from the very same concept of building crucial tribes and then having chapters beneath them, that would also ensure cross collaboration, because that becomes very essential to solve the technical debt in the first place. And given that the both of this is an assumption as we see it on the floor as it goes, we assume with a efficient cross collaboration with reduced technical dependencies, the velocity would be sustained and the technical debt would not cross beyond a certain threshold.
If I can add here, so the change management, why we are looking at creating sprint-based knowledge and ability. So this is something which is being iterated every time a new sprint is running. And this is to also focus if we are, achieving the performance and the scalable, the applicability in that particular sprint. So this is an iterative approach, and we are also showcasing this as a metric to see if there is a particular squad which is facing some challenges. So chapters and guilds could be trained in a way so that they can provide the requirement and these stages. And because we have a change model where we are measuring the ability and knowledge, we can see that this is where we have to focus and this is how we can implement. So we actually approached it in a way so that we can solve that solution even in the worst cases. But there are a few other models we can add as an add-on to this, which I would love to discuss if you'd like to. But
Yeah.
that would be a very big conversation, I know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. If you can stop sharing, please.
Yeah, sure.
And if everyone can turn on their cameras so we can